Welcome back to the vlog. Tonight is Zeus's favorite night for meals because as you can see we got some nice steaks going on the Barbie. These fillets are just what Zeus loves. The big one's mine, the next one's my wife's, and then I let the kids fight over the other two, see who gets what. Zeus of course gets all the leftovers, and unfortunately, there hasn't been too many leftovers recently, so he might be a little bit disappointed. Anyway, we got another session at Capital Casino. The 1-3 game that went all night was incredible. It's one of the best games I've ever seen. There was over $15,000 on the table, and I was fourth up for the game, and no one moved out of the game. There was one player finally, when he was up like $4,000 or $5,000, decided to leave, and the first player up on the board moved over, and there was no more movement. And every time someone went bust, they just reloaded. Everyone had deep pockets, and the action was just amazing. One guy would open for 50, another guy would raise to 200. Third guy would shove all in, and the hands that were shown down were not hands that you would expect to see. Anyway, we played in the must-move game for about 3 hours. We were there for about 3.5 and never made it to the juicy game, but we did all right in the must-move. We got a couple hands to stand up when we needed them to, and cashed out a nice win. Anyway, sit back, relax, enjoy. Here it comes. I took a picture of the chips on that main game. Those black chips are 25, so there's about 15 grand on the table. First hand of the day, we're in the big blind with ace-king offsuit. The button puts in the raise to 15, small blind calls. I decided to just call here. The button is a fairly tight player. I think he has a very tight range for his opening raise. Flop comes ace, jack, deuce. Perfect flop. We go for a check raise and it gets checked around. Turn card comes as a 6 of clubs. It puts a possible backdoor flush draw on the board. Now the small blind leads. I want to keep him in the lead, so I'm just going to flat here. Button folds. We see a river card of a jack of diamonds. Not a good river card. If he was betting second pair, he got there. But if he had a flush draw, he missed. He leads out for $50. He can be doing this with a jack, a missed flush draw, or possibly a small ace. So I put in the call, expecting him to take it down, and he just quickly mucks. There are a couple limps to me. I look down at ace, queen offsuit on the button, raise it to 20. And only one limper calls. He is the conservative player from before. So we go to see a flop heads up of 10, 6, deuce, all spades. I do have the queen of spades. When he checks to me, I should probably bet this, but I decide to check it back and be a little deceptive. Turn card is a 5 of spades, so I make the flush. He checks it to me again. I'm still checking it back, hoping that he will take a stab at it. The river card comes as a 3 of spades. Now we have a flush on board. I decided to see if he'll call down playing the board, but he won't. I opened for 15 with ace queen offsuit from under the gun. We get one caller from earlier position and then one from the cutoff. Person in the cutoff is a solid player who plays fairly conservative. We also get a call from the big blind. He's been very active. So we go 4 ways to a flop with 60 in the pot. And the flop comes king 8-5 with 2 clubs. Now this is a spot that hits my perceived range, but I don't think it's a good spot for a c-bet. I have 3 players I have to go through, and I have really no backdoor equity if I get called. So I just put in the check. It ends up going to the cutoff, who puts in a bet for $20. As I said, he's playing very conservative. And when he gets called by the big blind, I'm out of here. I think this is a good example how to save a c-bet when you really don't need to use it. If I was to bet here, my range would be so wide with that particular board against 3 opponents. It's just a losing play. Some might say it's a little conservative. I just think it's smart poker. Anyway, the person in the cutoff ended up having ace-king of clubs. Sometimes the bets you save are just as important as the bets you make. Here's another example of that last principle. I opened for a raise with ace-jack offsuit from the cutoff. A very conservative player calls on the button rather quickly. He either has a hand like mine or better, possibly a pocket pair. So when the flop comes 7-6-6, I decided to check. And if he had a pocket pair, he was going to be leading with it. If he had a hand like mine, he would probably check it. So instead of putting out a $15 C-bet to find out whether he had something or not, I checked it to him, let him take the action, and with his bet, I knew I was beat and I was in an uphill battle. So it was time to surrender. I told him he made a good bet and showed my hand, and he showed me 2 queens. There's a limp from under the gun. I looked down at 2 nines and raised to 20 from middle position. It's folded back to the small blind who puts in the call. He is a solid regular, doesn't get out of line too much. So we end up going heads up to the flop with 46 in the pot. I'm a little concerned that he cold called that raise from the small blind. The flop comes ace 7-5, and with my range advantage, I'm just going to go ahead and bet, and he quickly mucks. I've been card dead for quite a while, and I looked down at queen 10 offsuit in the cutoff. I decided to limp with it just because I was getting bored out of my mind. And we end up going 5 ways to the flop with $15 in the pot. And the flop is queen 5-3 rainbow. So that's a pretty decent flop for a hand like queen 10. The first limper from middle position now puts out a bet of 20. A rather large bet for the size of the pot. I'm really thinking that he's not that strong. He might have a queen with a weak kicker. The best he can have in my mind is queen jack, queen 10, and most likely he has something like queen 9, queen 8. Either that or he somehow flopped 2 pair, which I really can't imagine. So I decided to call, and we get to see a turn, and the turn is a king of hearts. And he decides to lead again, and it just feels like he is too weak to be leading again on a king on the turn. I think he has a queen with a kicker similar to mine or weaker. So I decided to put him to the test and raise it to 110. I think his range for betting is just way too wide, and it's going to be really tough for him to defend any kind of aggression because I think he just bets too much. So I put in the raise. He goes into the tank. And I think that if he has a hand like queen jack, he's probably going to fold. I don't think there's any way he has king queen or ace queen. If he has a set, I'll certainly find out about it, but I don't think he would bet it the way he did. So I just expect him to fold this 9 times out of 10, and I'll just take it down. We get 2 limpers from early position. I look at queen jack suited on the button and raise to 15. We get called by the big blind and both limpers. So we're going 4 ways to a flop with 60 in. And the flop is 10-9-3 rainbow with 1 heart. So we flop an open-ender and a backdoor flush draw. And when it's checked to me, this is the type of hand I'm going to go ahead and c-bet. I think I have a lot of equity, especially against 3 players. I'm hoping to get either all of them to come or maybe just one. This is definitely the type of flop that I would continue barreling on if I only have 1 caller. If I have more than 1 caller, I would probably barrel if I pick up some additional equity, especially if it's like a heart. I would definitely barrel with that, and I would use a large size to do so. Anyway, the other 2 players take their time before they ended up folding. So we're going to go heads up to the turn, and it's our bingo card. It is the 8 of hearts. So we make the nuts, and we have a redraw. The player checks. We're going to go ahead and bet not quite as big because we want him to call with his draws. He's likely to have a hand like Jack 10, or maybe a lone Jack, or maybe a 10 with a weaker kicker, maybe something like a 10-7, or some sort of hand like that. He puts in the call rather quickly, and we see a river card of a deuce of spades. So we have this locked up. He checks again. I was really hoping for a 7 on the river because I think he had a hand like Jack 10. But I decided to make this look a little bluffy, so I put out a big bet, and he quickly folds, and we move on to the next hand. There's a $6 straddle on. The next player min raises to 12 and gets called by someone in late position. I'm on the button, and I have 2 black kings. I make it 45, and this folded back to the person who put in the min raise, and they call for the 45, and now the late position player also puts in the call for the 45. So we're going 3 ways to a flop with 145 in the middle, and the flop comes Queen, Jack, 6 with 2 clubs. So pretty good flop for our hand. So we got a good flop, and we got good news when the first player decides to lead into us for $60. I'm thinking he has a hand like Ace Queen and doesn't want to give me a free card if I have Ace King or something like that. He might have a hand like Queen Jack and flop chop 2. The late position player puts in a call for less. He has $57. And I decided I'm just going to flat and see what the turn brings. I'm hoping for a blank, and instead I got a 6 of diamonds, which is even better than a blank. Because now if he had top 2, he's counterfeited. The flush doesn't get there. If he has ace queen, he's going to lead again, and he leads for $100, which is beautiful because he has about 350, 360 behind, and I'm just trying to figure out how to get the money in. I'm contemplating a raise size, and I want to get him committed without chasing him away. I decided to make it 300, so it'll be 200 more for him to call, which will be really tempting for him with a $600 pot. He only has to be right, 25% of the time. He just needs to be good. I know he's not good that often.
Fix the camera. Hello?
I realized that the camera got knocked out of whack. Got it back focused again. So he goes into the tank, and he's in there for a very long time. I think he knows that he's probably beat, and I think he just feels like he's getting a very good price to draw, which I don't think he is. But in his mind, I could have a hand like ace queen, and if he has a hand like ace queen, he's going to look like it's going to be a chop. If he has a hand like queen jack and I'm doing this, he might think he's ahead still. So I sped up the video a little bit to save us some time, but he was tanking for quite a while, and he finally decides I'm putting in the call. And the way he put it in, he said I'll call, and he throw one chip in. The dealer's trying to get him to put his chips in, and it got a little confusing for him, I think. He had 200 in, and the dealer said, no, you need to put 100 more in. So he puts in the extra 100 finally, and we get to see the river card of a deuce of diamonds. And as the dealer is scooping the chips in, he forgets that he already put 100 more in, and so he counts out another 100 that he thinks he owes to the pot and slides it across the line. Now, naturally, this would be considered a bet, and I know that this player did not intentionally mean to do that. So when the dealer clarified that he already had the 100 in, he goes, oh, in that case, I want to check. And I was fine with that because I think he's calling off no matter what. So I go ahead and I shove, and he insta-calls, and I take it down with my 2 kings. I never did see his hand, but I imagine he had a hand like ace-queen. Thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate your support. If you haven't liked and subscribed already, please do so. Really helps out the channel. We were in for 500, cash out for 13.55. So it was a good day for us. We never did get into that main game. That looked really, really juicy. One of the better games I've ever seen. Anyway, we had a nice win. Zeus had a nice dinner. That's coming up next, if you want to see that. Anyway, thanks again for your support, and we'll see you next time. Zeus, you sit. I'm going to go put this in your dish, okay? Stay. Come on, Zeus.